so much for bringing us together today for this high-level dialogue on financing Goals 5 and to ensure that women are fully empowered. Let me also recognize and welcome our brother from Nigeria Governors Forum, Alhaji Shitu. Thank you so much, sir, for always being there for us. I would like to respectfully recognize my Mrs. Omakaro, my dear sister. Thank you so much for being here. Very distinguished members, the Secretary of Programs of OSAP SDGs. Thank you so much. Dr. Bala and your team, thank you so much for your support, and very distinguished major stakeholders. I welcome all of you, and I thank you for finding time today to be here at this very important meeting. It is an honor for me to welcome all of you to this high-level dialogue on SDG5 financing in Nigeria. This dialogue is a clear demonstration of our commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Addis Ababa Action Agenda for Financing Development. Let me commend and appreciate the United Nations Women in Nigeria under the leadership of our dear sister for your ongoing partnership and commitment to Nigeria national development and empowerment of women. Similarly, I would like to acknowledge the support and collaboration of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, who happen to be our major stakeholders, and other critical partners here present. Excellencies, distinguished guests, this occasion marks a significant milestone in our commitment and effort to achieve the SDGs in our great nation called Nigeria. Following the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goal in September 2015 in New York, federal government acted very quickly in the operationalization of the Nigerian Sustainable Development Goal. This commenced with the timely establishment of robust institutional framework to provide strategic direction and impetus to the national commitment on SDGs. Nigeria's strategic approach to the implementation of the SDG can be seen in two different levels, national and subnational. At the national level, we're working closely with all the ministries, departments, and agencies of government known as MDAs to integrate the SDG into their sectoral policies and plan. And at the subnational level, we are working closely with the 36 state governments and the Federal Capital Territory to mainstream the SDG into their medium and long-term development policies and plans. This is our approach to mainstreaming, accelerating, and policy support known as MAPS for the SDGs. Indeed, since 2016, the Nigeria Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP 2017 to 2020, and the Economic Sustainability Plan of 2020, as also the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy of 2020, the Nigeria Medium-Term and National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, are all being inspired by the SDGs and the cardinal objectives of the immediate past administration. Also, Medium-Term National Development Plan aimed at unlock Nigeria potentials in all the sectors of the economy for an inclusive, broad-based, and sustainable national development. As at 2021, total investment required for the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 was estimated at 248.1 trillion naira. The role of the private sector in financing the SDG cannot be overemphasized. And that's why we need the private sector to partner with the public sector to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. Historically, In 2005, the international community signed up to spend 0.7% of the world gross domestic product, GDP, to finance global development. But it's then argued that even if all the nations manage to raise 0.7%, this will not be sufficiently to realistically finance our common future. The Financing for Development Report 2023 estimates that out of the $23 trillion required to finance the SDG in developing countries like ours, there is an annual financing gap to approximately $2.5 trillion US. Financial flows towards Nigeria development have been constrained due to declining government revenues, adverse effects on COVID-19, and reduction in private sector earnings. The lack of an integrated approach to financing SDG further aggravates the challenges and pose a threat to meeting the financial requirement, which was estimated at $100 billion between 2020 to 2030. But I'm not sure whether we are able to get 1/4 of this since 2020, because from 2016 to 2020, Nigeria experienced recession, and as we are planning to get out of recession, COVID-19 came. So, and we are mindful of the fact also that we're still battling with other domestic issues militating against our development. So to address the financial challenge, Nigeria has designed its Integrated National Financing Framework, INFF, in 2020 and was launched at the margin of the United Nations General Assembly by the last administration. The INFF serves as a planning and delivery tool to finance sustainable development at the national level. It helps policymakers to lay out a strategy to increase investment for sustainable development, manage financial and non-financial risks, and ultimately achieved sustainable development priorities. While a country's national development plan spells out what needs to be financed, the INFF shows how it will be financed and implemented. Therefore, implementing the INFF for sustainable development in Nigeria will enable an integrated approach for leveraging the diverse opportunities to mobilize resources required to finance the SDGs in Nigeria. One of the key outcomes of the 2023 United Nations Secretary General SDG Summit is the recommendation on the 6 transition pathways for member states to fast-track the achievement of SDGs, which is known as 2030 Agenda. These are the food system, education, energy access and affordability, digital connectivity, job and social protection, climate change, and biodiversity. Incidentally, these are all embedded in the thematic pillars of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 and the cardinal objective of the New Hope agenda of our administration. As key stakeholders, we can all contribute to the prioritization of the transition for the effective implementation of the SDG in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, as we approach the 2030 deadline, there's need for robust monitoring and evaluation, which cannot be overemphasized. Periodic process reports and voluntary national reviews will be needed to track progress as part of our informative action needed to deliver on the SDGs. Current and future development partner support should be focused on strengthening the integrated approach to the implementation of the SDGs. This includes capacity strengthening and support towards the effective implementation of key initiatives to address the challenges associated with financing sustainable development. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in line with transformative promise of 2030 agenda, we need the expertise and resources of the public and private sectors, United Nations Development System, development partners, the donor communities, the academia, civil society, and concerned citizens in support of the SDGs. All of us coming together, working together, financing the SDG will be very easy and sustainable. I hope that this dialogue of today will reinforce our commitment to work closely together in support of the achievement of the SDGs in particular and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in general. I wish all of us a very productive dialogue, and I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you. God bless Nigeria.
That applause, was it for her or the SDGs? Thank you so much, Princess Adejoke Orelope Adefulire, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on the SDGs. She says, with an annual financing gap of $2.5 trillion, we have a real threat. And the efforts of today, as well as all the other efforts over the years as we approach the 2030 target, is to strengthen an integrated approach that will focus on finding lasting solutions. Thank you, and thank you again. We are still acknowledging the presence of all our friends, our partners, and stakeholders as far as SDGs is concerned. Welcome the representative of the country director of GIZ, Ket Okopina, the diversity advisor on gender. You're welcome. The NYSC Director General, Brigadier General Y.D. Ahmed, is here represented by Mrs. Winifred Shopweka, the NYSC FCT coordinator. We have Mrs. Chiamaka Nake, the Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning of Anambra State. I know she's a panelist. We welcome you. Dr. M.M. Omokaro is the Director General, National Senior Citizens Center. She's also here, elegantly seated to be part of this conversation. Professor Antonia Taye Simbine, the Director General, Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research, Ibadan, is also in the house with us this morning. Moving along on our agenda, as we know, this conversation, this stakeholder engagement is co-hosted by the Office of the Special Assistant to the President on SDGs and UN Women Nigeria. And so to give us her welcome remarks, I want to read her brief profile at this point. I know we will do that at the panel, but this is where it is most suited, because this woman arrived Nigeria and hit the ground running despite being a Cameroonian national. She has over 35 years professional working experience in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. Prior to her current appointment, she was the resident representative of UN Women Mali, with the biggest UN Women's portfolio in West and Central Africa. She was head of UN Women Office in Niger, and she established the Eastern DRC office in Bukavu. Beatrice has also worked with the Canadian Cooperation Support Office in Cameroon as a gender specialist and advisor, and with UNDP as an agronomist working with the Africa 2000 Network, a UNDP micro program in Cameroon. She holds a Master of Science degree in Agricultural Extension from the University of Reading, United Kingdom, a diploma in women extension workers and agriculture from the Larenstein International Agricultural College, Deventer, the Netherlands, and a diploma in integrated rural development from the Pan-African Institute for Development, West Africa, Bill, Cameroon. Please welcome for her opening welcome remarks, Ms. Beatrice Enyong, the UN Women Country Representative to Nigeria and ECOWAS. That applause will not bring her to the stage. Why did you wrap your head today? I was looking forward to seeing your popular hairstyle. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me stand on the existing protocol. Though I would like to, first of all, thank our sister, our princess, for putting all this together. I also would like to thank the legislators who are here. And I would also like to thank my boss who is sitting there, the one that said he loves women. And I wish to also thank my sister, the UNDP rep. I always tell her that UN Women came from the womb of UNDP. So she has to take care of UN Women very, very well. And I thank all of you who are here. I thank the team of UN Women and the SDG, the Senior Special Assistant Office of the SDG, the team for putting all this together. It is with great pleasure and a deep sense of responsibility that I welcome you to this important event on financing for Sustainable Development Goal 5, focused on achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls in Nigeria. My sincere appreciation goes to my dear sister, Her Excellency, Princess Adejoke Orelope Adefulere. I hope I called well. Forgive me if I didn't call it well. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs and her team for their commitment and determination in making today's event a reality. As you all know, UN Women is the United Nations entity dedicated to gender equality and women's empowerment. A global champion for women and girls, UN Women was established to accelerate progress on meeting their needs worldwide. UN Women supports member states, UN member states, as they set global standards for achieving gender equality and works with governments and civil society to design laws, policies, programs, and services needed to ensure that the standards are effectively implemented and truly benefit women and girls worldwide. UN Women works globally to make the vision of the Sustainable Development Goals a reality for women and girls, and stands behind women's equal participation in all aspects of life, focusing on 4 strategic priorities. The first one is women lead, participate in, and benefit equally from governance systems. Women have, the second one, women have income security, decent work, and economic autonomy. The third, all women and girls live a life free from all forms of violence. And the fourth, women and girls contribute to and have a greater influence in building sustainable peace and resilience, and benefit equally from the prevention of natural disasters and conflicts and humanitarian action. As we gather here today, we are reminded of the critical importance of SDG5 in our collective efforts to build a more equitable and inclusive society. Gender equality is not just a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. And that's why we believe that SDG5 is central to the other SDGs. If we cannot achieve SDG5, it will be difficult for us to achieve the other SDGs. The journey towards achieving SDG5 has made significant strides, yet we acknowledge that substantial work remains, particularly in the area of financing. Ensuring adequate and targeted financial resources is critical to closing the gender gaps that persist across various sectors in Nigeria. We also believe that gender-responsive budgeting provides a well-established policy approach to support the increased alignment of public resources with gender equality objectives. In view of this, UN Women Nigeria is partnering with the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning to institutionalize gender-responsive budgeting and build capacities of budget desk officers on implementing gender-responsive budgets. Today's dialogue is a platform to explore innovative financing strategies, share best practices, and forge partnerships that will drive the implementation of gender-responsive policies and programs. It is an opportunity for us to reflect on the challenges, celebrate the successes, and commit to concrete actions that will bring us closer to realizing the goal, the targets of SDG5. It is expected that at the end of this event, participants would have increased knowledge, awareness of the SDGs, especially SDG5, and its impact in achieving the other SDGs. Build strong commitment and political consensus to implement national gender equality commitments and increase related funds. SDG5, permit me to just go through. SDG5 has the following targets, carefully crafted to enable member states to make gender equality and women's empowerment a reality. 1, end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. 2, eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking and sexual and other types of exploitation. 3, eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage, and female genital mutilation. 4, recognize and value unpaid care work and domestic work through the provision of public services, infrastructure, and social protection policies, and the promotion of shared responsibility within the household and the family as nationally appropriate. 5, recognize and value unpaid care work. I think this is a repetition. 5, ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. Undertake reforms to give women equal rights to economic resources as well as access to ownership and control over land and other forms of property, financial services, inheritance, and natural resources in accordance with national laws. Enhance the use of enabling technology, in particular information and communications technology, to promote the empowerment of women. And last but not the least, adopt and strengthen sound policies and enforceably legislation for the girls at all levels. Although all of us, we acknowledge the importance of promoting gender equality for sustainable development, sustainable financing for gender equality initiatives in the country remains significantly insufficient. In fact, the African Development Bank has said that Africa would need at least $40 billion to bring about gender equality. I don't know what the gap could be. Several factors have been adduced to the to be contributory factors to this deficit. 1, budget allocations for gender equality and women's empowerment are unclear and lack transparency and cannot be traced. It's difficult to trace what has been allocated for gender equality. Hence, evaluating and reporting on the government's commitment to gender equality, uphill task. Funding for some SDG5 targets related to gender equality and women's empowerment is inadequate and inequitable compared to others. All those 8 targets that I listed, I just wanted to show you that amongst those different targets, we have some that have funding and others have no funding. And so if we don't have equitable funding, we are never going to be able to achieve SDG 5. Another issue about the funding is budget allocations by SDG are not clearly presented in documents. Budget allocations for gender equality and women's empowerment are not in line with the UN Secretary General's recommendation of allocating 15% of budget allocations to gender equality and women's empowerment, especially in crisis-affected countries. To achieve gender equality and women's empowerment in Nigeria, the targets of SDG 5 should be funded in an equitable and innovative manner. Presently, as I've said, some of the SDG targets have funding and others. For instance, if we take GBV, I think we have some funding. But if we look at access to reproductive services, for instance, if we look at access to technology and some other ones, we will see that we don't have enough funding. Due to the centrality of SDG 5, member states made commitment to funding gender equality and women's empowerment during the Generation Equality Fora organized in Paris and Mexico City in 2021. In this fora, member states committed to promoting the Generation Equality Campaign, which demands equal pay, equal sharing of unpaid care and domestic work, an end to sexual harassment, and all forms of violence against women and girls. Health services that respond to women's needs and the equal participation in political life and decision-making in all areas of life. Some member states have not yet respected their commitments in terms of funding, both in Nigeria and out of Nigeria. Within the UN system, the UN Secretary General has prioritized gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. The Secretary General's Executive Committee recommended creating a high-level task force on financing for gender equality to review and enhance UN budgets for gender initiatives. By 2022, 4 entities, we have UNAIDS, UNICEF, UNOCT, set a minimum financial target of 15% for gender equality, whilst others establish customized targets. We recommend that the minimum standard should be implemented across MDAs and all international agencies. We are honored to have with us a diverse group of stakeholders, including government representatives, international development partners, financial institutions, civil society organizations, the private sector, etc., etc. Your presence here underscores the importance of collective efforts in mobilizing the resources necessary to advance gender equality in Nigeria. I am confident that the discussions and deliberations we will engage in today will inspire actionable outcomes and strengthen our resolve to achieve a Nigeria where every woman and girl has the opportunity to thrive and contribute to our nation's development. Once again, welcome, and I wish you a productive and inspiring event. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Madam Beatrice Enyong, UN Women country director to Nigeria and ECOWAS, she made some very salient points. I know that UN Women in Nigeria has pushed countless initiatives to address gender-responsive budgeting and create the right interagency awareness. Sustainable financing for gender equality is something that is a priority, and she has expressed concern around unclear budget allocations for SDG5, which makes this problem persist across our institutions. And she's ended on the hope that if we are able to implement minimum standard of 15% allocation, it might help move the needle. Can we give her another round of applause? Moving swiftly on our agenda, we are going through our lineup of goodwill messages right away, but I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Madame Abigail Favor, who is here representing the Honorable Minister for Women Affairs. Please welcome and thank you for coming. The Senate President is represented at this meeting by the Chairman of the Senate Committee on SDGs, and that goodwill message will be presented by Mr. Prayer Dressman, the Clerk, Senate Committee on SDGs. Please encourage him as he comes to the microphone.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My bosses are, like you know, are not here, so I was given a piece to share their thoughts concerning this event. Let me start by saying I want to stand by the existing protocol. I'm honored to be speaking with you today about a critical aspect of achieving sustainable development goals, financing gender equality. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but also a necessary condition for sustainable development. However, despite progress made, there are significant gaps. And one of the primary barriers to achieving gender equality is lack of, financial resources. To address this, we must, prioritize investment in gender equality initiatives, such as education, health, economic empowerment programs. Governments, corporations, and individuals must work together to allocate resources effectively. To achieve this, there are some strategies. Number one, increasing funding for gender-focused programs and initiatives. Number two, implementing gender-responsive budgeting practices. Number three, supporting women-led businesses and entrepreneurship. Number four, promoting gender-sensitive financial inclusion policies. By prioritizing financing for gender equality, we can unlock the potential of women and girls, leading to a more equitable and prosperous society for all. Let us work together to make gender equality a reality. Thank you, and God bless.
He ended on a very encouraging note. Let us work together to make gender equality a reality. And we don't need any more collaboration than that of the National Assembly to really, really push this needle that we are anxious about. Thank you to the representative of His Excellency, the Senate President. The United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator resumed in Nigeria in February 2024 as head of the UN system in Nigeria. He has more than 20 years of experience in development, humanitarian, and peace building, and he has served as the UNICEF's Regional Director for Eastern and Southern Africa, where he provided oversight and guidance to 21 UNICEF country offices, including on the formulation and implementation of the country program documents. He has led response to multiple and complex crises with massive humanitarian needs. Before that, he has served as UNICEF representative in Nigeria. So I hope you know that he is returning for a second term, but this time overseeing the entire UN infrastructure in Nigeria. So you can agree that we are definitely in safe hands. Please make welcome for his remarks at this occasion the United Nations Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, Nigeria, ASG, Mr. Mohammed M. Malik Fo. Thank you. You can encourage him some more to the microphone. He's a very well celebrated Nigerian.
What a great introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you for this great introduction. Let me just start by recognizing the representative of the Minister of Women's Affairs and Gender who has joined us here. I recognize also the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDG, my sister, Princess AWLN. Let me recognize also the legislator who have joined us here, who not only represent the Speaker of the House of Assembly, the President of the Senate, who are friends of the SDG and who are friends of gender equality. Let me recognize the Director of Governor Forum, who also is another partner on the implementation of the SDG, because when we talk about the SDG, we look at the national level, but we know that the needle can be moved only at subnational level. And in this regard, the governors play a key role. Let me recognize all the members of the diplomatic missions that are represented here. Government. Of course, I want to end up by recognizing my fellow UN colleagues, including two of my sisters, who shared the high table with me. I want to name Beatrice, the country representative of UN Women, and Elsie, the country representative of UNDP. I am honored to be part of this dialogue on closing gender gap, financing solution for SDG5, a goal that serves as a critical accelerator for achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goal. Let's be clear, gender equality is not a goal in itself. It is a catalyst for progress across education, health, economic growth, climate action, peace, and security. As we gather today here, it is crucial that we take into account access to education and healthcare, and significant barrier to economic participation and decision-making. In Nigeria, over 70% of the women in rural areas lack access to basic services in the Global Gender Gap Index, indicating severe disparities in the economic participation, in education, health, and political empowerment. Gender-based violence remains pervasive, affecting nearly 1 in 3 women. Women also have a representation of less than 5% in the national parliament, reflecting a significant underrepresentation in decision-making process. Addressing these challenges require a strategic and well-financed commitment to SDG number 5. Funding SDG number 5 can transform the life of women and girls by providing access to quality education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. It can also reduce gender-based violence through targeted program and legal reform, ensuring a safer environment for all. Additionally, increasing women participation in leadership and decision-making will enable more inclusive governance, leading to more equitable policy that benefit the entire nation. Within the UN system, leading to more equitable policy that benefit the entire society. This is our positioning. In the United Nations system, Development Cooperation Framework of Nigeria cuts across all strategic pillars. This underscores our collective commitment to mainstream gender perspective into every aspect of our work, ensuring that our efforts are holistic and inclusive. From a system-wide perspective, gender-responsive budgeting is critical for ensuring adequate financing for SDG5. This approach ensures that public resources are allocated effectively to address gender disparities, and that the impact is spreading to maximize all benefit for women and girls. By prioritizing gender-responsive budgeting, Nigeria can ensure that sufficient resources are allocated to economic empowerment and political participation, thereby accelerating progress toward the SDG. The journey toward SDG by 2030 is challenging, but it's not unsurmountable. By leveraging more equitable, inclusive, and prosperous Nigeria for all. Let's reaffirm here our commitment to this cause and work together to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, RC. Can we give him another round of applause? He says the problems we identify are challenging but not insurmountable. I like when he started and he said gender equality is not a goal in itself, but a what? Somebody heard him. I'm happy to hear that. It is indeed a catalyst. And if Nigeria is off track by 60%, like he said, we do require a very strategic and well-financed approach. Honorable Tasera Olawale Raji to please approach the microphone for the goodwill message of Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me respectfully adopt the already established protocol. The Right Honorable Speaker will have been here personally, but unfortunately, he has some other engagements, today, and that was why he could not be here personally, but I bring his good wishes to the gathering here today. It is a great pleasure to be here today, participating in this high-level dialogue focused on financing Goal 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals. I would like to begin by expressing my deep efforts of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, whose tireless advocacy continues to drive progress on these crucial goals. Equally, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the United Nations championing and supporting the rights and empowerment of women in Nigeria. Today's dialogue is a clarion call for action. The Sustainable Development Goal 5 aims